friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. You see, as soon as I open my mouth to speak, you realise I don't originate from this part of the world, from London. I'm actually from this place here, the north. But if you were a Londoner, where for you does the north begin? Well, where do you think? I did some research for this message last Saturday in Sainsbury's car park, and as people were queuing up to do the shopping with the trolleys, I asked 100 people where they thought the north began. And I took this atlas with me, and the results were very interesting. 94 people said Brentwood, just on the rim of the M25. 4 people said Harold Hill. And 2 people, it was a man and his son dressed in Tottenham replica shirt, said Portsmouth. Might come as a shock to you, but some people in London don't like northerners. I was on the tube some time ago travelling into London, and 2 young guys got on, and one of them was telling his friend about a holiday that he'd been on to Tenerife, and apparently one night he'd gone into a club and they'd come across some dodgy northerners, Jack. Real dodgy they was. Well, I looked across at that young man and I thought, son, you don't know how close to death you can come. You see, some in London think that the north must be a grim place to live. The rain, the mills, having to wear a flat cap all the time, having to exercise your whippet every day. See, Londoners might like to watch Coronation Street, it's just that they wouldn't like to live on it. Let's face it, some Londoners hear a person like me speak and they think I'm a bit thick. They love to make fun of my northern accent. And all this got me thinking about different forms of discrimination. We could describe what I've spoken of so far as regional discrimination. It's nothing new. I mean, Jesus knew in his time that there was huge regional discrimination, and for Jews at the time, the biggest part of that was their relationship with the Samaritans. You see, Samaria was in the middle, Galilee was in the north, Jerusalem in the south. So to get from south to north, you had to really go through Samaria. Many Jews hated the Samaritans that much that they did a massive detour to avoid even putting their foot there. That's how strong it was. So there was friction between the Jews and the Samaritans, and you might remember that the Pharisees once accused Jesus of being demon-possessed and a Samaritan, and it was the worst possible insults that a Jew could give to a fellow Jew. Wonder what discriminations you faced, perhaps about your education or lack of it, the qualifications you've got or haven't got. Maybe it's the part of the town that you live in where your house is located. Maybe it's the job that you do. I'm a doctor. Ooh, I'm a waiter. Bit of a silence on that one. Perhaps it's discrimination in families, who you've married or want to marry. Other forms could be about the colour of the skin, maybe your height, perhaps where you shop, or even the church you attend. There's many others that I could have mentioned. One of the many wonderful things about Jesus was the number of discriminations he was prepared to challenge head on. Sometimes he was despised for that, but it didn't deter him. Lepers were lonely and isolated, but he touched and healed them. Prostitutes were social outcasts, but he spoke to them, forgave the sin, and clothed them with dignity. Tax collectors at the time were despised, yet he chose Matthew as one of his inner disciples. The Roman occupation force were hated by many, yet he healed the centurion's daughter. Zacchaeus, another tax collector, was a guy who was short in stature, yet Jesus called him, had tea with him, and brought salvation. And the fishermen, let's be honest, they weren't exactly the academic elite of their day, and yet he chose several of them to be in that first group of disciples. You know, just to finish, Jesus was brave enough to challenge all kinds of discrimination. But let's first examine ourselves to see that we don't have any lurking inside us. Once we sort that out with God, we can then be brave enough, as Jesus was, to confront it elsewhere. You know, just to finish on a lighter note, it's no longer grim up north, and for me, it never was.